Hello there, my friends. Okay, let me actually, I've got to adjust my thing. Okay, hello, there we go. Hello, my friends. Welcome. This is Michael William Denny of the ThunderWizard.com YouTube channel. So today I got a lot of information I'm going to be throwing at you. And today we're going to be taking a deeper look into the difference between Kundalini and Qi, or prana, or life force energy. And we are going to work with the gods Thor and the god FREY. And both of these gods are going to come and help us, because both of these gods represent they represent the two kinds of energy, spiritual energy, that is needed in order to achieve enlightenment. And there's a lot of confusion. I've made a couple of videos about the difference between life force energy, which is also known as Qi or prana, or orgone, and then we've got Kundalini on the other side. And a lot of people don't know the difference between these two. A lot of people mix these up. And so what's interesting is that, again, we are talking about a science of spiritual power. This is what I'm here to teach. And being the person that I am, I've worked with so many different disciplines and so many different teachers and different kinds of energy practices, that I am always looking for ways to better explain what these energies are and what's the reason for that, so that we have a practical understanding. And because so who cares, we could talk about Kundalini all day. Who cares, what does that mean? We can talk about Qi or life force all day. What the heck does that mean? What does that have to do with anything? So my job is to give you practical tools that you can use, so that you can take these energies and you can stimulate them within yourself. You can bring them into your body. You can transform yourself. So today we're going to be talking about life force energy and working with life force energy. And one of the most well-known and popular ways to do that is called Qigong, which means life force energy work. And then we have the yogic disciplines. We have meditation, and we have mantra, and we have other kinds of things which are designed to open up the chakras and allow the Kundalini fire to rise up the spinal column and give us enlightenment. Now, these two systems overlap, so let me just get that going here first. We have two systems within the body, at least two. And one is the chakra system. Right, let me adjust all my stuff because I'm vain and I want to look good in front of the camera. So okay, so we've got the chakra system, where we open up the 7 chakras, which are vortexes that are coming out of the spinal column, and the energy that rises up the spinal column is called Kundalini. And it has a strong connection to the nerves, as well as to the psychology, the psyche of the individual, and it opens up all of the spiritual centers known as the chakras. And then we have the Dantian system. The Dantian system is a three system where we have 3 different energy cauldrons, and these cauldrons are used to gather and store and mix and refine life force energy, or Qi. Now, these, we get confused because these two systems are sort of superimposed right next to each other within the body. And so I talk about this a lot, and it still can be confusing, but we have the gods Thor and the gods FREY, and these gods are going to help us understand how these different energy systems work. I'm going to get into that. The god Thor is the same deity. In fact, his name is the same, although it sounds different, to the Vedic god Indra. And we'll talk about that a little bit, of course. And then we have a connection between a very ancient Vedic god called Prajapati, and the Germanic god Frey. And I'm going to explain to you how that's actually the same word as well, even though it's completely different pronunciations. But we're going to see how these two gods work. And what a lot of people don't know is that these two deities, Thor and Frey, have connections to the planets, respectively, of Jupiter and Venus. And as it so happens, these two planets are the teacher planets. These are the planets that teach us spirituality. On one hand, Jupiter teaches us the deep religious spirituality, and this is what Thor does. Thor protects this. He is, if you're familiar with people who practice any kind of northern reconstructionist religion, they use a Thor's hammer to hallow the Vey, which means to open up a sacred space. So he is representative of the warrior priest. But then we have Venus. Venus is the teacher of the terrestrial deities. And these are the deities that are associated with fertility, with magic, with love, with luck and health and cars and money and stuff. And so these are two priests. And each one of these priests is a master of an internal system of spiritual energy. And so you can choose to do one or the other, or you can combine the two, which is what I do with some of the things that I teach. So for those of you who follow my teaching, you're going to see how when you combine Qigong or energy work with the rituals that I teach, and when you combine it with mantra and ritual, those of you who have done that, you've felt the tremendous power when you bring these two together. And what's happening when you do that is you are taking the power of life force energy, or Qi, and you are combining it with Kundalini. And when you bring these two powers together, that's when, for those of you who've experienced it, you know what I'm talking about. It is absolutely unbelievable, the power that you have. So let me be clear about something. I am not interested in just sitting here and talking for 3 hours about spirituality just for the sake of talking. I want you to take these tools that I give you and to put them into practice so that you can have a personal, physical, emotional, visceral experience of these energies. I want you to experience it for yourself. People comment on my channel all the time, and somebody commented on my channel today and wanted to know, I won't get into it, but wanted to know, I was taking an opposing viewpoint to some teachings out there, and somebody said, can you give me some evidence to back up your viewpoint? And I responded to them by saying, well, what evidence would you find to be credible? Do you not listen to your own instincts? At which point the person wrote back and said, oh, never mind. And I said, no, this is something worth talking about. Because when people use the word evidence, most of the time, what they're saying is they want me to quote to you from some book that somebody wrote. Which means you just want me to give you somebody else's viewpoint. And this is the world that we live in today, modern, new age, neo, everything. It's all about just all of this intellectual knowledge we have in our heads. And we don't have any physical, practical experience, because once you experience these energies, you don't need me or anybody else to back up your opinion. You will have experienced it for yourself. You won't need anybody else. You'll be your own guru. My job at that point is just to help guide you along the practices. Your experience now, you're beyond me. You'll experience things for yourself. You won't need me or anybody else to tell you what anything is. You won't need me or anybody else, or you won't even need any external impulses or chemicals or anything else to give you an experience of the spirit world. There are practices that our ancestors had that are extremely powerful and can give you a personal experience of the spiritual realm. And they are hidden, They've been hidden for a reason, because they're very powerful. And in times past, we're talking like a couple thousand years ago, these practices that I'm going to share with you are so powerful that they hid them, because the elites are the ones that had these powers. The priests and the kings. These are the ones that had these powers to be able to tap into the other realms and to be able to manifest their intentions. Because the average person, they didn't want them to have it, because they wanted to stay in power. But we don't live in that time anymore. We live in a time where the average person can be their own king, their own guru, their own priest, their own shaman. So we're going to be talking about that today, specifically about the two kinds of energies known as Kundalini and Qi, or prana. So, while I'm getting myself prepared, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a list here, because we're going to take a look at these energies through the gods that are lords of these energies. And these two gods are the thunder god Thor and the fertility god FREY. And I'm going to show you how both of these gods can teach us how to master spiritual practices and to be able to achieve our own evolution on a spiritual as well as a physical, mental, emotional level. I've got a lot of information. You can tell I'm really psyched up for today. So I'm just going to go ahead and give you this list. I'll see if there's anybody online. I will be taking questions if there's time, but I got a lot of info to get through, so we'll go ahead and get started. So let's, let me see. Let me start with this one. It's a little not too intense. We'll start with this little list here, and then I'll answer your questions. So just hang on. Okay, so we have 11 people on. By the way, again, the best way to deal with me is to ask me a question, and I can best interact with you. So Emerson's Coffee, Bike, and Rum Shop says, isn't his birthday tomorrow? My birthday was on the 17th. Thank you for asking. Happy birthday to me. I'm assuming you're talking about me. Happy fall equinox. Is today the equinox? When is the equinox? Yeah, it feels like it. I can feel it. Definitely feel it in the air. We are going into fall. I love fall. Fall, I can just, my body, there's something about it. Maybe because I was born in the fall. I don't know what it is, but my body really likes it. Anyway, Christian Soret asks a very good question. He asks, if we are God and our thoughts and intention guides us towards where we intend, I think you meant to say intend, where we intend, why are we bothering learning about planets and astrology and simply not put our consciousness toward a better place? Well, a lot of questions in there. First and foremost, I love learning about planets. So I'm sorry it's a bother for you. I love it. I'll tell you why I love it. The planets are energy sources. So let me ask you this. If you had within your house, you had an actual energy vortex that you could plug yourself into to give yourself energy, and you knew how to combine different vortexes within your own house and plug yourself into them in order to maximize your power, wouldn't you do it? So that's why we're learning about planets. This isn't intellectual. So I don't know you, Christian, but based on what you've said, what I see here is that you're a very intellectual person, which means that you're thinking about all this stuff, but you're not experiencing it. If you follow what I'm teaching and you do just one of the exercises that I teach, you will have a physical experience of the energy of the universe, and you won't have to ask these kinds of questions. Once you feel this kind of power flowing through you, you will never ask again, why do we have to bother with this stuff? You're going to be asking me, where can I get more of this? What's the best way for me to connect to this power? So get out of your head. Most of people today in modern Western society live in their intellect, and they have very little interaction. That's why everybody lives on their phones. They don't have a personal interaction with this. So that is why we're doing it. So the other answer to your question is, in order to become God, it takes power. And so in order to intend your thoughts, that takes power as well. So thoughts are great, but thoughts are like having a program but not being able to plug it into a computer. You've got to be able to plug it into the computer, and then you got to plug it into the net. You know, if you don't have those things, you can be sitting there with a zip drive or a thumb drive with a program on it, and it does you no good. That's what your thoughts and your intentions are without power. Without power, your thoughts or intentions are nothing more than a thumb drive, and they mean nothing. You can't practically do anything with them. So I hope I answered your question there. All right, so let's just go ahead and get right in. We got a lot of stuff to look at today. So let's see. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you this list. If you have the ability to take notes, do so. If not, come back after this has been archived. It'll be archived and recorded. And come back with a pen and a paper and pause it and write all this down, because I'm going to go through each of these points. And when I've gone through all of these points, you're going to see not only the gods, but you're going to understand what all of these two major different energy systems within the body and what they are, why you want to work with them, how to work with them. And then if I remember, and if I don't remember, please somebody remind me, I'm going to show you how to combine both of these exercises into one practice. And when you merge these two energies of Kundalini and Prana together, you have unbelievable amounts of power. So I'm going to give you an overview on how to do that. So, all right, here we go. So I'm going to give you the list. Go ahead and look over them. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about them with you. So I'll give you a couple of minutes here to peruse these notes. I hope you can see them. Okay, so now let me see if I can get my notes up here on the screen. I got all these different windows up here. Nope, that's not the one I want. I want a different program altogether, so I want to see those notes. Where did they go? Oh, it's going to be on this one here. There we are. Okay. Now I'm almost ready. I've almost got it together here. Let me get this here set up so I can see what the heck is going on. We got that there. We've got that window there. All right, so you see on the left-hand side, you've got Thor and you've got Frey. You saw a bunch of stuff listed under there. So first thing, let's just start one thing at a time. So Thor is the thunder god. And as the thunder god, he is the master of what we would call life force energy. The Chinese call it Qi. The East Indians call it prana, but they're connected with the power of breath. Every time you breathe, you know, you are breathing in life force energy along with oxygen. You're also breathing in life force energy. So that's why deep breathing is so healthy and so powerful. That's why exercise is good, because besides just moving and breathing and getting the blood pumping and all the other stuff that comes with exercise, you're also getting a lot of life force energy because you're breathing a lot. So that is Thor. And then we have the god Frey. So Frey is, as you know, is the god of fertility in the Norse tradition. Now I'm going to, if you haven't looked at the notes already, I'm going to show you that Frey, even though it sounds totally different, is the same god known as Prajapati in the Vedic. And I'm going to break that down for you. And that's important because when we break down his name, you're going to see not only who Frey really is, but you're going to see what he does. So we'll get into that. We got a lot of stuff to go into today. So Frey is the god of internal psychological or sexual energy, because they're connected. The psychological energy and sexual energy are very connected. That's why, by the way, that's why Freud always boiled everything down to sex, because it's an energy. Kundalini, this energy you've heard of called Kundalini, is not life force energy. It's not Qi or prana. It is the psychological energy of the ego, and it is the sexual energy within the body. So now you can see that Thor and Frey are both masters of these spiritual energies, which we need not only to live but to evolve on a spiritual level. I'm going to be talking to you about things that we can do to empower ourselves with this energy. So that's a real simple overview there. As we go a little bit further, as I've already showed you, let's see if I can find it again here. There are two different systems. One is the 7 chakra system, and the other is the Dantian system. Dantian just means energy cauldron. So let's take a look at that graph again. Okay, so you can see why there's so much confusion here with this, because these systems are right next to each other, and so somebody's focusing on their navel center, and doing some Qigong, but then another person is working on their navel center in the Kundalini system. And then both systems, both the yogic and the Taoist system, both say that the navel center is where life force energy is compiled. So it can be very easy to mix these two systems up, but you can see these two. So generally speaking, when we're working with life force energy, we're working with the 3 cauldrons: the third eye, the heart, and the navel. And that's what they are. They're big energy cauldrons. The navel is the biggest. Big, huge energy cauldron. That's why people focus on their navel. One of the first things that happens is when you focus on your navel, if you just breathe, I've got my hands on my navel right now. I don't know if you can see it. When people just breathe and they just bring their energy down to their navel, they're actually refining and bringing life force energy into a cauldron. And this cauldron will cook up this energy. It will refine it and purify it. And then there's a little brain in there. There's actually a brain. You've got not only the brain up here, you've got a brain in your solar plexus, and you've got a brain in your navel. Literally, a bunch of neurons come together and form a little brain. And so that brain knows exactly where to send life force energy throughout the meridians in the body. So that's the 3 Dantian system. And then you have the 7 chakra system. 7 chakra system are 7. This is a tough one to understand because people try to treat chakras like energy cauldrons. See, now energy cauldrons you can focus on. You can focus on energy cauldrons and breathe, and you will actually be driving energy into them. Now you're only really supposed to deal with the navel, because when you try and start opening these two, when you don't know what you're doing, then you can actually cause yourself some physical problems. So that's why most of the time people only talk about the Dantian, which is the navel center. But these other two you can meditate on if you want to open your third eye, or open up there's all kinds of things that can happen when you open up the heart cauldron. But take my word for it, you don't even need to worry about them, just worry about the navel center. But a lot of people try and treat the chakra system as though they are energy cauldrons. And so people will focus on their third eye chakra, or they'll focus on their crown chakra, or and all they're really doing is they're just driving lots of blood and life force energy to the nerves in the area. And so they have a sensation, and they may or may not, more than likely, I would say 99% of the time, they're actually doing nothing to open the chakras. Because the chakras are not energy cauldrons. They are projection points along the spinal column that project emotional realities. And there are 7 basic stages to emotional awareness, to emotional maturity. Really, that's all it is maturity. And I've talked about that, so please go onto my channel. By the way, if you're new to this, go onto my channel, thunderwizard.com, YouTube channel, and search my channel for the chakras. You know, type in chakras in the little search thing, and you'll hear me talk about what the chakras are and what they do. I'm not going to take up the time today because we just don't have enough time to get through all the information. But basically what the 7 chakras are, they're stations along where the sexual energy, which is wrapped up with the psyche, the psychological energy, the ego, I use that in quotes, the identity, as it's maturing, it rises up through these different 7 stages. And when it achieves maturity, the chakra will open. When the human being has reached a certain level, let's say they've gotten past the heart level, and they start to move to the lessons that are connected to the throat, then what they'll do is they'll go through the lessons and they'll learn the negative part of it, which is they want to be isolated, they have all the answers, they don't want to listen to anybody, and they have some wisdom, but they don't, you know, they're just into them and God. They just want to deal with them and the universe. And then when they open up to the more mature side of the throat chakra, then they become a teacher. Then they become the teacher who sits on the mountaintop and expounds. That's just one example. That's what Kundalini is. Kundalini is something that should evolve on its own. Having said that, you can do practices which are meant to stimulate both of these at the same time. Now, I have to be honest with you, not everybody can handle this. This is why a lot of these things were kept secret. And this is why it's written, and this is important, you have to follow a teacher. Because if you try and mix these 2 systems together and you don't know what you're doing, you can literally blow a gasket. It can be very dangerous. You can have Kundalini psychosis, you can have Qi sickness, all kinds of really bad things. I know because I've experienced it firsthand. I've seen other people experience it. So that is why I suggest that people work with me personally, get a reading from me personally, so that I can tailor-make for you the mantra, the ritual, and the energy work that will go together to fuse for you, so that you can have an experience that will not only be powerful, but will also be pleasant for you. So we'll get into that. But I'm gone over some basics here. Let me see if there are any questions before we go any further. So Christian is asking, what do you suggest as an exercise to enable my power, or at least have my first interaction with subtle energy? Well, the first thing I would suggest is that if you're brand new to this, then the first thing I would do is I would go onto my channel, thunderwizard.com YouTube channel, and I would look for the introduction to Qigong. So you'll find a playlist, Qigong, Qigong, and get started with just the basic energy, the Qigong energy, okay? That will get you in touch with Lifeforce energy. To get in touch with Kundalini, then you have to start doing things like mantra and ritual, and that is something that I recommend people do with me one-on-one, because that's, you know, it's like going to the doctor. You have to have the right prescription. So to get started, just get started with a basic Qigong exercise so that you can have an experience with that, and then take it from there. When you really want to do some really powerful Qigong after you've gotten the basics down, then I would go to qigong.thunderwizard.com, qigong.thunderwizard.com, and get started with the celestial Qigong. Okay, that's the most powerful Qigong that I have. Once you've got an edge with celestial Qigong or any of the other Qigong, then come and talk to me, and we'll create for you a practice which will stimulate the Kundalini, and then you can use them together. Okay, so yeah, so ambient relaxation, don't worry, this will be archived, so you can come back later. I will keep throwing those lists up so you can write them down. I'm just going to do my best to go through all of it. A ton of information here. All right, so again, I respond to questions, so I'm going to bypass the questions. Okay, so Christian, you're asking about astrology. So what I would do is I'm not going to go deep into astrology now because we got too much stuff to do. Go onto my channel and go to, I forget what it's called. It's one of my recent ones where I talked about finding your spiritual powers. It's one of the recent ones. It's got a picture of a guy meditating, and I talk about the planets and what the planets represent and what they are. So look at that. When you're ready for a reading, which is where I show you specifically how to tap into the planets and the energies. So like I said, you can go around and plug into all of the things that you need. Then go to astrology.thunderwizard.com and get a reading from me, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, so moving past that, any more questions? All right, good day teacher Natalia Lokia says, question, what is the difference between Kundalini energy and Qi in terms of universal energy in relation to the Aesir and the Vanir? Are either groups of gods more aligned? Yes, and we are going to talk about that. The short answer is that the Aesir, through Thor specifically, is life force energy, is Qi, and Frey is Kundalini. Frey represents obviously the Vanir, and Thor would represent the Aesir. But having said that, I'm not going to make a blanket statement for all of the gods. But if I had to choose between one or the other, I would say that the Aesir are Qi and the Vanir are Kundalini. But even then, as I say that, it doesn't feel right. But in terms of these two gods specifically, Thor is the Lord of Qi, of life force energy, and Frey is the Lord of Kundalini, and I'll explain that. It's in his name. I'll explain that in a second. Question, are there any terms or names for these different energies that are understood in Germanic, Teutonic, or Norse languages? You know, there probably are, but to be honest with you, I haven't found, there's so many people out there trying to ascribe energies to some old Germanic words and phrases, and to be honest, in my experience, I'm not sure that they really know what they're talking about. I can connect some of the things, but the things I don't know, I don't try to pretend I know about them. So these are some things that perhaps you and I together, as we reconstruct, recreate, resynthesize the path of our ancestors, we can find those and or ascribe new names to them. I'm open to that as well. Okay, so all right, so again, no more questions, so let's move on. A lot of information here. So again, I'm going to bring up my little list so that I can walk through it with you. As I'm bringing up my list, let you take a look at it again. So don't try and memorize it, just kind of go over it. I'm going to talk through each one of them because again, I've got so much info, I don't know if I can get it all in one thing or not, but let's take a look. Okay, so let's just deal with a couple of them. A lot of really cool stuff there. I was unpacking a zip file within me, and I was trying very hard to get all the information down, and I got probably 5% of what's inside of me. So we'll see how much I can unpack as we go along. So, all right. So Thor, as I said, is life force energy. Frey is Kundalini. Let's talk about the names of each of the gods, because that's going to tell us a lot. And this will probably clear up a lot, because a lot of people don't know. They don't know why, for instance, why is Frey and Freyja seen as both brother and sister, and sometimes husband and wife? You ever notice that? People try and come up with all kinds of crazy philosophical reasons. It's an energetic reason. And I'm going to explain it to you. It's very simple. I'm going to clear it up for you today. So let's start with Thor. As you know, Thor is the Norse name for the god of thunder. His nickname, translated into English, one of his nicknames is the son of earth. So in the Old Norse we have the god Frey. Now, between the two, the word Thor, even though it's the one we know of, is actually a mispronunciation. It's no longer, you know, as the Old Norse language, as it moved away from the Proto-Germanic language, it changed some pronunciations, and so it lost some things. This is one of those places. Thor is not his original name. His original name is Thunar. So we can take a look at that. I'll look at Frey in just a second, but I already have Thunar here. So let's take a look at what Thor's name really means based on the ancient Indo-European seed words that make up his name. Okay, so Thunar is his name, and this is actually his Indo-European name. Now, Thunar is the lunar vibration of the thunder god. If we want to start talking about the solar vibration of the thunder god, then we have to look at the Vedic, which is Inthura or Indra. We're not going to be talking too much about Indra today because I want to focus on the connection between Thor and Frey. So Thunar is his name. Thu, as you know, is the Indo-European root seed sound, the bija mantra, the power sound of the essence of who Thunar is and what he is lord of. Thu means drop. It means drop of rain. It means drop of water. It means drop of mead. It means drop of ambrosial nectar. It means mind. It means the essence of the moon. The moon is the essence of the ambrosial nectar. And when you get a strong connection with ambrosial nectar, your mind becomes full, it becomes satiated, and it becomes objective. So this is important. You know, the thing about the intellect is that the intellect, the more divorced you become from your emotions, you'll see that's when the intellect starts moving faster. Have you ever been around people like that? People who are really emotionally messed up. They just talk a mile a minute and they don't make any sense. They intellectualize everything. So we have to make the difference between the mind and the intellect. The intellect is not the mind. The mind is the ability to objectively reflect the power of the soul, the power of the spirit. This is what Thu is. Thu is the ambrosial nectar that allows the thunder god to be able to use his mind. And this is what he gives to us. This is why he's the protector of man. Human beings, our name in the Germanic, man means mind, mankind. The original name for humans was not male and female, man and woman. It was man, meant both men and women. And human being meant the reflection of divine mind. So Thor is the god that gives us this life force energy. And when we connect to life force energy, our moon, our mind becomes full, and we're able to see things from a meditative standpoint. We're able to reflect on things objectively. So that's Thor's name. His name is Thunar. Now, Frey. Let's look at that very quickly again, because for those of you who haven't heard, I'm going to be hipping you to some really cool stuff, man. So let's take a look at what Frey is, where his name comes from, and all that good stuff. Okay, so Frey's name is Frey, and that is actually a very close pronunciation to what we believe is the original Indo-European word for the power of fertility, which was pra. Pra meant fertility. P-R-A-A, pra. Now, if you say that with a general Germanic type of an accent, the P becomes an F and the A becomes an A, and we get Frey. So Frey is simply just the essence of fertility. That's all he is. So what we're seeing here in this name of Frey is we're seeing that the Germanic tribes were operating from a very early understanding of the Indo-European root religion. You know, and we see that in contrast to the Vedic, which, even though the Vedic is, you know, something like 7,000 years old, by that time in their society they had become sophisticated enough where they started making that a little more complicated. So his name in the Vedic is Prajapati. Prajapati. Now, Prajapati actually tells you a lot, because when you break down Prajapati, you have pra, which is fertility. You have the ending ja, which means energy of, specifically the feminine energy, the Shakti energy, the very powerful feminine energy that creates. And then you have pati, which means husband or lord of. So Prajapati means Pati, the lord of Praja, the dynamic energy of fertility. So Praja would be, guess who? Freja. Same word. It's the same word, you guys. We are talking about a very ancient Indo-European religion. I just have to say to any of my Asatru brothers and sisters who don't want to deal with the Vedic because that's a different blah blah blah, how can you possibly understand what your ancestors practiced if you don't have an ability to connect it to the original Indo-European language and religion? And the people who still hold on to that are the Vedics, the Hindus. They are like the masters in the library. They have kept all of that. Our ancestors forgot it. They didn't. But when we bring these two, the Northern European tradition and the Vedic tradition together, we can see how they both came from an original Indo-European tradition. So just by looking at the name Prajapati, I already know that Prajapati means the Pati of Freja, the husband of Freja, the lord of Freja. And now we see again why Frey and Freja are both brother and sister and husband and wife. Because one is pra, is fertility, and the other is the dynamic energy, the feminine, ja, praja, freja, Frey and Freja. So do you get it? Is it clear? Prajapati is the Vedic name for Frey. So here we have these two energies of fertility, which is Frey, and we have the power of life force energy, which is Thu. Okay, so is that clear? All right, so did a little bit of education there. Hopefully that is clear. Let me put up the list again so you can see for your eyes what I just talked through, and then we'll take some questions if there are any. Okay, actually, before I take questions, I'm going to finish this up. We have to now take a look at the runes, because the runes also tell us a lot. So, let me do a little bit of education here. Again, everything I'm saying, I've already said in either my books or in some of my DVDs and or some of my videos. So if you look through my channel, again, if you're new to this, please don't be your typical modern Westerner. Don't be somebody who has a 3-second attention span. In order to get the most out of my channel, you're actually going to have to go onto my channel and actually do some research and spend some time digging through my playlists and my videos, because if you binge watch my stuff, you're going to end up hearing me say all this. Now, having said that, it's okay to ask questions. I just want you to know that there's so much information there that please take advantage of it, because I do talk about all this stuff. But I'm happy to repeat myself. So, the rune ING. A lot of people don't know what ING is. Now, here's let me hip you on some stuff. We know that, and even scholars know this, language scholars know that in the original Indo-European language, and even in, up until the modern times, not, today modern, but, a few hundred years back even, Indo-European languages had two words for fire. One was fire, which is the actual physical fire that burns in your campfire. And the other one is the sacred fire on the altar that sends the smoke of the sacrifices to the heavens. So the external fire is fire. It's the same word, different pronunciations, but that's the word for it. But then there was a word for the internal fire. Now, as it turns out, and I don't have the exact pronunciation in front of me, but the original Indo-European word for the internal or sacred fire was, I think, ink, something like that, which is what we have in the rune ING, I-N-G. So the word for internal fire was ING. The word for the external fire was fire. Now, you're going to get some different pronunciations. In the Greek and Latin, ING is transposed and you get ignis. It's where we get the word ignition. Comes from that word from the internal fire. The spiritual god of the hearth in the Vedic tradition is called AGNI. It's the same word, it's just a slight different pronunciation. Instead of ink, it's AGNI. They just transpose the G in the end. But it's the same deity. Agni is the deity of spiritual sacrifice. And so here we have that represented in the runes, the rune of Ing or Ingwaz. Now, why is this important? Because Frey is called Ingunar Frey. Now, many people have made the mistake that his name is Ing. So a lot of people call him Ing. And they think Frey's nickname is Ing. No. His name is Ingunar. Nar means first cause or lord. Ingunar means lord of the sacred internal fire. Lord of the sacrificial fire. Ingunar Frey means Frey, the master of Kundalini, because that's what Agni is. That's what Ing is. The internal spiritual fire represents the Kundalini fire in the human being. Are you making the connection? You see this now? You see the connection here. Now, let's take a look at some images of both Thor and Frey in terms of their ancient idol deities. So the first one is Thor. There's really nothing, maybe there's some symbolism in this I haven't figured out, but it's pretty straightforward. It's just a little picture of a funny looking guy holding a Thor's hammer. So here's the ancient idol for Thor. Right, so the Thor's hammer, as we know it, represents the power of thunder, the power of life force energy. So we see Thor holding, he's the one that holds this power. He holds his hammer. He holds the power of life force energy. Now, let's take a look at what Frey is. And then we're going to talk about what Kundalini really is and what is he doing. This little idol, when you know what you're looking at, tells you a lot. So here's the idol of Frey. So, what is interesting about Frey is that Frey has an erect phallus, and he's in a meditative posture. He's sitting in what looks like a full lotus, and he's got a fully erect phallus. What the heck does that mean? Well, we see an obvious connection to fertility, obviously. But what else does this mean? Well, anybody who knows anything about real tantric practices, and by tantric, by the way, I do not mean the new age nonsense idea of tantric sex, which is just a fancy way of, you know, just having wonderful, emotional, nurturing sex with your partner. There's nothing really tantric about that. I could get into that. That came out of nowhere. Real tantra means spiritual discipline, and I wish I could give you an exact percentage, but I can say that probably over 99% of all tantric practices involve being celibate, meaning not having any sex. So if you want to become a tantric master in India, which means you become a master of ritual, you become a master of mantra, you become a master of meditation, you take a vow of celibacy, sometimes for years at a time. I was celibate for 6.5 years. So what you end up doing in those 6.5 years, if that's how long you're celibate, you end up learning how to control that sexual energy, otherwise you go crazy. And so you actually learn how to, with breath, with intention, with other things, to direct that energy, that sexual energy, up the spine. That's what the erect phallus signifies. It signifies that Frey has complete control over his Kundalini. He has complete control over his sexual energy. And when that energy gets to the third eye, I am telling you, all kinds of crazy things happen. So, you know, people work on opening their third eye. Well, let me tell you, if you really want to open the third eye, first off, by the way, don't ever try and be celibate without a teacher. Don't ever try it. All you'll do is you'll end up pooling up all that sexual energy and you'll make yourself sick. So there's a lot of people out there trying to be celibate, and all they're doing is making themselves sick. You actually have to know what you're doing. You have to have specific exercises. Actually, I don't recommend people be celibate, to be honest with you, because you don't have to do it. I can show you ways to get all that energy without having to be celibate. So just having said that. But Frey has an erect phallus not only because he's the god of fertility, but because he has mastered his Kundalini, which means that he is fully connected to his sexual energy, and it's risen up his spine. And by the way, that's what all those pointed hats means. That's why wizards wear pointed hats. You know that? They wear pointed hats because it represents energy coming up out of the crown chakra. That's why people would, you know, the old rishis would take their hair and they'd wrap them up, you know, on sort of like that little, you know, bun on the top of their head. That's about protecting the crown chakra, because all of their kundalini's coming up out of their crown chakra. So that's why the Chinese did that too. They did the same thing. They would wear their hair up in a bun. So anyway, I'm getting off on a bunch of tangents. So let me just double check to make sure that I went through all the little stuff here, because I am going through a lot of information. Let me see if there's anything else I missed. Okay, so we walked through all of that. The last thing I'll say is that, as I said to you before, among the planets, there are 2 planets that are teachers. One is Jupiter, and one is Venus. The planet Jupiter is the teacher of the gods, the celestial gods, and Venus is the teacher of the terrestrial deities. Whenever you want to learn spiritual practices that have to do with magic, fertility, and Kundalini, then you want to deal with Venus. Venus will teach you that. When you want to deal with religion, spirituality, transcending, when you want to deal with devotion, which is an incredible power in and of itself. There are some people that their entire spiritual practice is devotion to a deity. That will raise the Kundalini in and of itself. That will open up all the energy meridians in and of itself. So those are the 2 classes of energies here, and that's why Frey is part of the Vanir. You see that now? Because Venus is connected to Kundalini. And that is why Thor is connected to life force energy, because Thor is connected to the Aesir, or the celestial deities. All right? So a lot of information, you know, like I said, it's a big chunk, a big file. And I'm doing my best to try and break it down so you guys can then go off and digest this stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of a break here, do some ads. By the way, I don't have it on here, but if you want some practices to open up the Kundalini in a very safe way, then go to, I believe it's chakras.thunderwizard.com, chakras.thunderwizard.com, and get started with the meditation. And I believe there's a mantra there where I teach you one of the basic mantras to open up the to stimulate the Kundalini to go up the 7 chakras. Having said that, let me do some ads, and then we'll see if there's any questions. Okay, so again, I don't have it on there, but if you want to learn more about how to stimulate the Kundalini and get started in mantra meditation, go to chakras.thunderwizard.com. Okay, so there is a question here which I do want to address here, because I do want to sort of destroy a very common myth surrounding spirituality and meditation. So Christian Sored asks, what is the purpose of avoiding egoic needs? By egoic, you mean egotistical? Egotistical needs to become a meditation master and or all the other type of master you mentioned. What is the purpose of avoiding? There is no purpose to it. You will never hear me say anything along those lines. You will never hear me say that you need to destroy your ego. There is no such thing as there's nothing spiritual about trying to get rid of, just get rid of all that self-judgment. The only thing I'm here to teach, I'm not here to teach you how to become the New Age version of an enlightened master. Those who are above all problems and have no emotions and nothing bothers them. I am just loving all the time. I do not teach that garbage. It's nonsense. What I am here to do is to teach you how to be a human being. And being a human being means everything connected to being a human being. Means enjoying your physical body. It means enjoying sex. It means enjoying sports. It means enjoying laughing and crying. It means expressing your emotions when somebody harms you, to tell them how angry you are, to mourn when you're sad. It just means being a fully developed human being, because that's what we're meant to be. And all of these things, when you reach the final destination of whatever it is, enlightenment, the best that you get is to be a happy and fulfilled human being. Part of being a happy and healthy human being is that we have power. We have power to intend our reality. We have power to experience spiritual states of being. We have all kinds of power, but we never stop being human. So there is no purpose. There is no purpose. In fact, anybody who's you know, that kind of self-judgment is something that's taught. But people who are really wrapped up in that are fighting with themselves. They're avoiding their own human feelings. And one of the things I hammer on is that people need to have all of their feelings and be human. That is the most spiritual thing you can be, is to have all of your feelings and take constructive, healing, and appropriate action. Because when that happens, guess what that means? It means your Kundalini has risen. It means that all your chakras are open. So let's get rid of all that nonsense, all that kind of religiosity crap. For the past months, since I've been building my spiritual energy, is it normal? Almost don't feel the need to have sex. Same goes for my wife. Yeah, that's normal. As long as it's not something that you're doing out of some emotional guilt or anything like that. Yes, this is one of the things that happens. Like I said, I was celibate for 6.5 years, but that's because I was doing some very powerful energy work, and one of the things that happens is that the energy starts naturally, instead of going down, you know, the sexual energy wants to go down and out, it starts to turn around and it starts wanting to go back up. And then instead of experiencing the sexual energy in the lower organs of the body, you start to experience a blissful, orgasmic kind of energy in the upper regions of the body. So you still have that same kind of feeling. And if you're not, you're probably doing something wrong. So, anyway. But, again, don't seek for that. If it happens naturally, great. But don't seek for it. Let it happen on its own. Otherwise, you could hurt yourself. All right. So, moving on. All right. So, I went through a bunch of information pretty quick here. So I think I went through all of the information I wanted to go through. Let's now take a look again at the two energy systems, and then I'm going to start talking about the different kinds of energy work to open those up. Okay, so we are talking generally here, so some of those general things, you know, there's going to be some overlap between those things, but generally speaking, this is what these two energy systems are dealing with. So, all right, so when it comes to life force energy, we have a practice that the Chinese call Qigong. Just means energy work. So when you're dealing with energy work, when you get to the higher levels, again, truth is you don't even need to do what I'm about to say. Some people do it, but I've found it's completely unnecessary. When you get to some of the higher levels, you start using visualization and breath and things like mudras and stuff like that in order to move the energy up into the heart and up into the third eye and into the, you start opening up, there are a bunch of chambers in the brain, which of course, as you know, that's where the DMT and all kinds of other stuff is. And so at the very high levels of Qigong, you have people who will meditate for years and years and spend hours and hours a day, you know, inside, opening up, talking to the little gods inside of the head and opening up the chambers. And then, you know, when you do that, then all kinds of crazy things happen. That's when you start seeing those, like in those kung fu movies where people do things like levitate and float and walk through walls and do all that kind of stuff. That's from years and years of doing what's called Negong, which is internal energy work. But we have these three basic dantians. Now, you don't have to worry about these two, okay? I'm telling you as somebody who spent a lot of years doing that stuff where I was trying to do all that stuff I just mentioned. And I did have some success in it. But I also found if you have the right practice, you don't even have to worry about these two centers. They'll open up on their own. The only one that you should be concerned with is the navel center. And the only, when I say concerned, the only thing you really need to do is when you're done with your practice, you simply focus your energy there and you ground yourself into your navel center. So, I have on my channel, the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel, I have, I guess if you want to get started with one, you can go to the Thor's hammer practice. And if you do the Thor's hammer practice and follow all the directions in that, that will give you an introduction into life force energy. And what is most important about that, a lot of people want to skip it, myself included. Trust me, I'm as lazy as anybody. Really, it's important. You guys should know this. I am the laziest person out there. The last thing I want to do is work hard. I want things quick and easy. I only do things because I like it. If I spend 3 hours surfing and I exhaust myself, it's only because I'm having fun. I'm not trying to prove anything. You know? So when it comes to energy work, trust me, I have done a lot of research finding the practices that give you the most benefit in the least amount of time. Now, there is a downside to that. The downside to that is when you do like the celestial Qigong, or for those that have done the spirit fighting, you can talk to them. The spirit fighting, those people who do that know specifically. The amount of energy you get instantaneously is huge. But what ends up happening is that in order to have that power, now here comes the answer to the previous question about the ego. In order to have that power, you have to make space for it. What is taking up the majority of the space in your body is your identity. I am this, I do that, I believe in this, I like this, I don't like that, blah, blah, blah. These are all these, there's so much RAM going towards keeping up this identity, continuously reaffirming and reinvesting and recreating this identity of who we are. So when we lose that identity, it feels like a death. It can be very frightening and sad and all that other stuff, and scary, painful. But that is what happens when you get in touch with real powerful life force energy practices. What is going to happen immediately is that you then have to sort of barf up a bunch of you know, you have to clear up room on your hard drive. You have to get more RAM. You have to get rid of a bunch of old files, which are going to be emotional patterns and ideas about yourself. You know, when I was doing the spirit fighting and I was practicing like 3-4 hours a day, the energy was unbelievable. The amount of energy that would go through my body, and felt so wonderful. And then when I was done and I'd closed down, then all of a sudden all of the garbage would come up, all the feelings would come up, and I'd have to put myself into like a fetal position and just weather the feelings. And what was happening is that my hard drive was dumping a bunch of programs that it didn't need. It was making more RAM so that it had more access to all of this life force energy. Okay, so that's the downside to that. There is what's called the right-hand path, which just means that, when the Shaolin is a good example of the right-hand path, where you have a lot of structure, you have a lot of rules, where you have to, when you do your Qigong meditation, you have to sit for an hour and you have to imagine opening up this channel and opening up that channel, and then you breathe this way, and then you take this color in and you breathe this color and you put it there, and then you chant this thing and you do that. And so that is really a bunch of busy work that keeps you sane, and you get the energy much more slowly, but you feel like you're doing a lot of work. So your ego actually gets, you get a pat on the back. Yes, I was meditating for 4 hours and I ended up being able to see the blue-purple pheasant as he flew across the, that's kind of the right-hand path, which is much slower, but it's much safer. Left-hand path is when you start going deep into energy work. It's got nothing to do with worshiping demons. It's got nothing to do with any of that garbage. It's got nothing to do with sex or any of that crap. You know, what people think is black magic. It's got nothing to do with that. What it is it's just simply doing very simple energy work that goes straight in there and just starts dumping all of your stuff. The reason why it's potentially dangerous is people lose it. They go crazy. And so you can end up with somebody like a Darth Vader. That's how you end up with a Darth Vader. Somebody who's found a really powerful practice, but they weren't able to get rid of all of their negative attachments, and so they have all this power, but they don't know how to constructively use it. Okay? So that's the one side. That is the power of the life force energy. I recommend doing life force energy first. Because Kundalini, when people just work with Kundalini, then you really have the potential for people really missing the boat, and sometimes getting, you know, Kundalini psychosis is a real thing. So we'll talk about that in a second. So if you're interested, go onto my channel, look at any of the playlists that say Qigong or energy work. If you really want to get to the high level stuff, go to qigong.thunderwizard.com and begin using that. Okay, so now I will see if there are any questions, and then after the questions we'll talk about Kundalini. All right, let's see. Is there any questions here? Again, I'm looking for the questions, so I know people. All right, so you either got to write question, you know, in capital letters, or put a question mark in there, because if I don't see that, I'm just going to bypass what you're saying. So Christian Sword asks, when you practiced and still practice your meditation and maybe trance, have you experienced yourself doing mudra naturally without knowing what they meant and what they're for? Yeah, that's called spontaneous Qigong. And yes, I have done that. What is happening is that your nervous system, again, there are brains. You got a brain in your navel, you got a brain in your solar plexus, and you got a brain up here. The brains here in your body know what they're doing. This is why when people go into spontaneous movement, or they start speaking in tongues or whatever, it's the body adjusting. What's happening is that the nervous system is adjusting to the energy, and it's trying to, you know, if you go into a certain mudra or a certain posture or something, it's because the body is saying, hey, this is where I need to go to be able to open up the meridians. Ideally, again, people think they're experiencing some major wonderful thing. I'm enlightened, look at me. It just means actually that you're not enlightened, that you're actually blocked, and your body's trying to deal with it. Now, it has to happen. I'm not judging it. I'm just saying you shouldn't look for that. If it happens, great. But when the energy has moved into all of the meridians, then you don't do any of that crazy spontaneous stuff. That it means that you're on the way there. And there are some practices, and I knew a guy who did this. He did nothing but spontaneous Qigong. The problem with spontaneous Qigong is that when you are doing spontaneous Qigong, which, by the way, this is seeds. I know there's at least one guy out there who's interested in seeds. This is one of the things that happens when you do seeds, when you allow yourself to become, when you allow the gods to mount you. You can spontaneously dance, ecstatic dancing, singing, all that kind of stuff. When you're doing spontaneous Qigong, when you're just letting the body do whatever it does, what happens is that the soul has taken itself off the throne, and energy is now on the throne. So that means your body is just doing it. Now the problem with that can be is that people go after that to have an experience, and I've seen this happen. But when people do that to avoid their feelings, because people use it like a drug, they use it to avoid, then that's when you can invite other kinds of entities to come in and get inside your aura and possess you. So spontaneous Qigong has its place, but it should be done. You should know how to protect yourself when you do it. You should know what the purpose of it is. You should have a good teacher to teach you that. But ideally, you want to have your soul on the throne. Because when the soul is on the throne, then you're less likely to have some kind of negative entity come and take over your body. Having said that, spontaneous practices do have a place. I've done it myself. I still do it from time to time when my body needs to adjust. I still do that. All right, so Black Earth says, is true about spirit fighting. Are you asking or saying? It is true. If you're asking, I am telling you, yes, it is true. Savannah wants to know, what is Reiki energy versus life force energy? That's a very good question. So Reiki energy is when you are allowing yourself to be a conduit for higher beings. And I'm not a Reiki master, so forgive me, I may make some mistakes here, but generally speaking, as I understand it, Reiki is you are being a conduit. So the difference between, say, Reiki healing and Qigong healing is that a Qigong healer has filled his or her body with life force energy. So they have an excess of life force energy, and then they use their hands or some other method to transmit that raw energy directly to the patient so that the patient can heal. So the difference is that the Qigong master does a lot of work to empower himself, which means that he or she has to do a lot of the things I just said about making space for the energy and the ego and all that kind of stuff. Whereas with Reiki, you don't have to do that. Reiki is a lot easier to do. And so in some instances, it's actually a better thing to do. So see, I'm not necessarily a hands-on healer. When I've done healings, and if I ever get to that, you know, if somebody asks that, I'll do more of a Reiki type of a healing. I don't want to try and use my energy to heal somebody. I'm a martial artist, though, so if I go to cleanse an area, like if an area has negative energy or if an area is haunted, or, you know, just for my own practice, or, you know, I've never used it on a person, but if I were to use it on a person, I would take the energy that I have created with my practices, and I would use my hands to deliver that energy to either fight negative entities or to clean a space. So those are I hope I answered your question. Those are the two differences between Reiki versus life force energy. Reiki is a great thing to do. When it comes to healing yourself, though, I recommend doing life force energy. I recommend doing Qigong, because Reiki you do get some benefits when you heal through Reiki, but you've known, I'm sure if you're a Reiki person, if you've been there's a lot of really toxic Reiki people who drink and smoke and, you know, are really unhealthy, and they still have Reiki. So they obviously aren't clean inside. Qigong will actually heal and clean your body. That's why I recommend people do it. So I hope I didn't offend anybody, but that's my understanding. So again, looking for the questions. How does Reiki, okay, so I think I already answered that question. Is there a specific time of day to do Qigong practices for a beginner? No. I can tell you that when you do high-level Qigong practice, you should not do it during the hot times of the afternoon. And it could be cold outside, but we mean hot by where the sun is. So from like noon until 3 o'clock, you shouldn't do Qigong exercises really, especially high-level stuff, because then you can overheat. So the morning is really good. When you do, like, celestial Qigong is good in the morning, but it's also really good at night. So nighttime, depending on the kind of practice, is also a good time to do it as well. Savannah Moore says, so practicing Reiki isn't going to help me empower? Bummer. Well, I'm not saying blanket statement that it won't help you empower. Of course it will. But a lot of people do Reiki in place of real energy work, meaning like Qigong energy work. And, you know, I've talked to people and they'll say, oh, I don't need to do Qigong, I do Reiki. And, you know, if they don't ask, I leave them alone, but I walk away knowing that they either don't want to go through the discipline of doing Qigong, or they just aren't meant for that. So I just leave them alone. But no, Reiki will empower you. You know, Reiki with Qigong together works really well. So I'm not trying to say don't do Reiki. I think it's a great practice. Subliminal Zipar Official asks, what is mental illness? In spiritual terms, can it be healed? So can it be healed as I have a family member with a mental illness? First off, let me just say, Subliminal, it's not your responsibility to heal your family member. So if your thought process is, I want to figure out something so I can heal my family member, the first thing I need to tell you is that's not your responsibility. You need to let them have their experience with the universe. First and foremost, I say that for your own health and well-being. Having said that, it depends on the kind of mental illness. I don't want to make a general statement about it. And I would need to know a lot more. You know, I would need to know what this. I would need to talk to the person to be able to know how to help them. And again, that's when it comes with any illness, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional, or spiritual. The person has got to want to heal. And until they want to heal, there's not a lot any of us can do. So that's why, whether it's somebody who believes they're possessed by the devil or somebody who just wants to work with me, they have to come and ask me, and they have to pay me for my time, because that says they are reaching out to the universe saying, I want to heal. So having said that, I can't answer your question without talking to the person in general. You know, again, if you're asking about Qigong, you're asking, can Qigong help mental illness? Mentally ill people should probably not do high-level Qigong, first off. But second off, again, if you're asking me this question because you want to give it to your family member so they can heal, you are out of balance. You are not, you are trying to be responsible for something that's not your responsibility. The best thing you can do is to heal yourself. So if you want to practice Qigong so that you can be more powerful and so that you don't feel the need to heal your family member, then do Qigong. Otherwise, you do need to let go. That's my suggestion for you. You can pray for them. You can do ritual for them. That's probably the best thing you can do, is to pray and do ritual for somebody so that they get to the place where they want and are willing to reach out for help. Okay? All right. Again, I don't know anything about the mental illness, so I might not even know what I'm talking about. But generally speaking, that's the vibe I get from your question. What if you're a reincarnation of Sekhmet and love midday? I'm not a reincarnation of Sekhmet, so I don't know. Are you saying you like midday? Well, I would recommend, you know, finding another time of day to do Qigong. You can still enjoy the midday. Listen, I'll tell you this. When I've done my spirit fighting, one of the things I love to do is, you know, I'll do my practice at night, and then I'll sleep, and then when I get up the next day, my body buzzes. And there's such a beautiful, then you can go and lie out in the sun and just let your body buzz. You don't have to do them at the same time, right? You can do them at different times. Christian Short, question, how do you know if you're possessed? Well, why are you asking that? Do you think you're possessed? You need to talk to me. You need to, I can't answer that without talking to you. So if you think you're possessed, give me a call. You can go to astrology.thunderwizard.com and book a session with me, and if you are possessed, I'll help you. All right, so that's it. I don't see any more questions, so let's move on to Kundalini. So before we go on to Kundalini, we're going to do some ads. Again, if you want, there are links here in these ads that will show you where to go to get things concerning Qigong and astrology and all kinds of other stuff. And shamanism courses. Somebody remind me to talk about the shamanism courses. I always seem to forget. But if you want to learn how to safely stimulate the Kundalini, go to chakras.thunderwizard.com. Okay, so let's do some ads, and then I'll be back and we'll talk about Kundalini. Okay, so now let's talk about Kundalini. All right. So first let me talk to you about some of the physical symptoms of Kundalini in the body. So I guess let's start with Qigong. Qigong, when you are working with life force energy, and some of these things are similar, kind of overlap again, but there are some general differences. When you're dealing with Qigong, you will feel perhaps some heat in the hands. You might feel kind of a slight dizziness. You might feel kind of tipsy. You might feel kind of giddiness, you know, when you're working with it well. You feel this feeling of satiation and sort of like you kind of smoke some weed and you're like, woo! By the way, that people who like to smoke marijuana, you don't know this, but what you really want is Qigong. Marijuana mimics the effects of Qigong. High-level Qigong is the best high I've ever had in my life, without any of the negative side effects. So I'm just letting you know that. By the way, that's another thing. Somebody asked me, I think somebody mentioned that they just play with the ball, but they can barely feel the energy. So first off, I don't know, your technique might be off. So maybe, you know, this is why it's good to work with a teacher, because a teacher can just sort of check your body posture. Sometimes just a tiny little adjustment of the body posture, tiny little adjustment of the technique. Sometimes just changing the mindset will help. But one of the main things is the body has to be clean. So I can tell you that if you're drinking alcohol excessively, smoking a lot of marijuana, doing a lot of drugs, eating a bunch of junk food, smoking cigarettes, it's going to be hard for you to be able to do Qigong. Now, I mean, you can do it, and some people do all that stuff and still do Qigong and get results, but, you know, you got the meridians have to be able to flow. So, sorry, it's not popular, but if you want to really get the benefit of this stuff, you got to kind of, this is the reason why, you know, these martial artists and Qigong and yogis, they live a pretty clean, healthy lifestyle. Now listen, I don't have any moral issues about any of that stuff. I could care less. I love doing things that feel good. I will do anything if it feels good. The reason why I do Qigong and the reason why I do mantra and the reason why I do ritual is because it feels really good. I get really high off of it. And in order to get the most out of that high, my body has to be in a certain state. So it works out well, you know, because now I'm 54 years old and I don't have any of the physical problems that all of my 54-year-old friends have who are on all kinds of medications and go to the doctor. I mean, I still feel like I did when I feel better. But a lot of that has to do with, you know, doing Qigong. But I just want to feel good. So if you want to do this for the same reasons that I do, then stick with me. I'm not telling you to do things in order to be righteous or spiritual or any of the other stupid nonsense. Listen, if you want to drink yourself to death and eat Cheetos for the rest of your life, man, my hat's off to you. If I could get away with it, I'd do it. But if I do that, I'm not going to get as much fun out of my Qigong practice. So that's why I do that. Anyway, so some of the symptoms of Kundalini. Now, Kundalini and Qi sometimes can feel the same, but generally speaking, Kundalini is more of a fiery energy. It is the fire of Kundalini. Kundalini is in the spinal column, which means that as the Kundalini rises, it will stimulate all of the nerves because that's where all the nerves come from. All the nerves come directly out of the spine, right? So as the Kundalini rises, what will happen is that the nerves will fire. So sometimes people will have, you know, hot flashes. They'll feel a lot of heat. You know, you can tell when there's some major energy problems and blockages because when their energy rises, they will, you know, either, you know, have pain in their hands or something like that, or they'll have visions or hallucinations. These are not signs of spiritual advancement. These are signs of toxins in the body and toxins in the emotions and in the psyche. That's all that means. Having said that, You know, I can feel the Kundalini in my body right now. I've got a lot of Kundalini energy. That's why I'm talking so fast and a lot of Kundalini coming through me today. So I feel very tingly. And it's a different kind of tingle from the Qigong type of energy, which is more dense. The best way to put it. It's more dense. That kind of tingling is more comfortable for me. The Kundalini is not as comfortable because the nerves are on, going like this all the time. So some of the downsides of Kundalini, let's talk about Kundalini psychosis. Kundalini psychosis is a very real thing. Now, I've talked about this before. I'll go over it generally again. There are people who are suffering from Kundalini psychosis who think that they have experienced Kundalini awakening. And on the extreme end of Kundalini psychosis, you have people who believe they are God. They believe that they are in control of the universe and that they are responsible for controlling everything in the universe. Now that is completely different from what I mean when I talk about becoming a god in the flesh. When I talk about that, I'm not talking about some crazy state of being where you feel like you are responsible for all of the things and that you have the power to create, you know, hurricanes and that, you know, one person, I don't remember his name, I won't share his name, but he shared that he went through that. Somebody commented on one of my videos that he was thanking me for that because he went through that and he vacillated between feeling he was God and feeling he was Lord of the underworld. You know, all that kind of stuff. And so when you have this kind of paranoia delusion, that is Kundalini psychosis. And so I have talked to people who say, oh, I know what it's like to be a god. I wouldn't want to ever do that again. No, being a god in the flesh simply means that you have the ability to intend your most pleasurable reality. That's it. When you no longer have to do ritual or you have to do all kinds of stuff in order to get the things you want in life. When you simply make the decision and you go, you know what, I'd like to have this. And then, boom, it manifests in your life. That's when you're a god on earth. You're not responsible for other people. It's your job to get your life together. That's not my problem. I'm only responsible for my infinite universe. And we all have an infinite universe that we create. So anyway, that's a whole other subject. But so Kundalini psychosis is a very real thing. And that is not what I'm talking about. However, so now let's talk about the nature of Kundalini, because this will understand it. So life force energy is life force energy. Life force energy is the ambient energy that is surrounding you at all times. Everything in the universe is made up of life force energy, including my glasses right here. And life force energy is something that we tap into and we can channel, we can absorb and digest and create more and more within us. So life force energy is sort of like, you know, lifting weights. You go to the gym and you lift weights and you get bigger muscles, you get stronger. Life force energy is like that. You do exercises, you end up becoming more muscular on an energetic level. So we're talking about force. This is again Thor. Thor has this power of thunder. This is why Thor is big and strong and muscular, because he's life force energy. Kundalini is not life force energy. Kundalini is psychological energy. Kundalini is the identification of the self. That is why when people are having Kundalini psychosis, they think they're God when they're not. They're just having some crazy hallucination. It's because their ego's out of whack. So when you do work with Kundalini, which is mantra, mantra is about Kundalini. So Qigong, when you breathe, you can still do chants and stuff like that in Qigong. I do it all the time. The Hul breath, by the way, H-U-U-L, go onto my channel, and if you want a really good beginning practice that will open you up and will safely begin to stimulate the Kundalini, but give you tons of life force energy, as well as connect you shamanically to the heaven and the earth, and to the Mother Goddess, the Earth Mother Goddess, go and look at the Hul breath meditation, which is H-U-U-L breath, spelled H-U-U-L. That is a really good practice where you can combine both Kundalini and Qi if you're a beginner. But when you want to stimulate the Kundalini, you do mantra. And so I'm talking a lot about Qigong, so you can tell that the society that has mastered life force energy practice is the Chinese. They have mastered this. There's no other, to my knowledge, there is no other culture on the planet that has a better understanding of life force energy and how to harness it, manipulate it, and to use it. When it comes to Kundalini, there's no culture on the planet that has mastered Kundalini or even begun to scratch the surface of Kundalini like the Vedic Hindus. These people are the only representation of the Indo-European religion that has been practiced uninterruptedly for tens of thousands of years. So they have this down. They have mastered this. And this is why mantra is a science, because each syllable has its own frequency and its own power. And so when you do mantra, and you do mantra in the right way, you will then safely awaken Kundalini. And what will happen is your unconscious mind, where you hold all of your blocks, all of your beliefs, all of your past life karmas, all of your self-sabotage, all of your belief systems, basically everything that drives all of your actions and decisions. This is in your unconscious mind, and mantra is designed to act like a, what's the word I want to look for? What are those programs that they use to infiltrate? I'm not talking about viruses like a worm, those little things where, if you want to hack into somebody's, whatever, you use this certain program, which is a backdoor worm that goes in, and this is what mantra does. When you practice mantra, you are sending a program into your unconscious mind, which is going to seek out all of the blocks and all of the emotional misconceptions, all of the fears, all of those things, and it's going to begin to destruct those things. Now, the left-hand path, you've heard of the left-hand path, the tantric path. Again, tantra has nothing to do with sex. Tantra means discipline, means technique. Tantra is ritual and mantra and deity worship and doing things like that. When you deal with tantra, what you are doing is you are using symbols, ritual, and sound, as well as working with deities to go in and reformat your hard drive. Why is this important? Because Kundalini is your psyche. It is your ego. It is your self. And as your self rises up through the spinal column, you go through all of the different lessons. I won't talk about that now. But in order for you to be able to become emotionally, psychologically mature, you either have to have very one-pointed discipline. This is why, again, teachers are important and spiritual disciplines are important, because, and the whole idea of bowing at the teacher's feet is not about worshiping a person. This is about saying to the universe, I'm giving you all this unconscious garbage. I know that I have a computer that has some viruses in it, and I am not able on my own, with my own power, to be able to think myself into enlightenment. So I am going to give over my hard drive to the deity. And the guru will usually be the transmission of the deity. So that's why you bow and you touch the teacher's feet and all that kind of stuff. It's got nothing to do with the teacher, or very little. It's Got very little to do with the teacher. The teacher is at best a conduit, and more than likely is just a symbol for the unconscious. So when you work with Kundalini, you are doing that. Now let's talk about combining these two. So there are people who spend, you know, if you deal with a yogic practice, especially like a high-level yogic practice, like some kind of a tantric practice or tantric Tibetan Buddhism, because Tibetan Buddhism, by the way, is just simply Hindu Tantra. They just messed around with it and put some, I could get into that. But it's basically just Hindu Tantra. When you're dealing, yeah, some people aren't going to like that, but sorry about that. When you're dealing with just the yogic practices, people who are called to that are people who are looking to have emotional and psychological maturity. And that's why they deal with Kundalini. When people are drawn primarily to the Eastern life force energy practices, they are wanting to have an experience with life force energy. Now, when these two combine, this is when you get unbelievable power. Because life force energy does have an effect on Kundalini and vice versa. And if you just did Kundalini, for example, you would end up stimulating prana and Qi, and you would probably do some breath work and other things to help stimulate the Kundalini. So it's sort of like you're using life force energy as a supplement to supplement your Kundalini work. And the same goes true with a lot of the Chinese traditions, is that they deal primarily with life force energy, but they will do some ritual and some spell work and other things like that to supplement the life force energy work. And again, they overlap, and I'm being general, but this is my experience. But when you take life force energy and combine it with Kundalini energy, in my experience, you have really powerful stuff. Now, here's the trick. You've got to find somebody who knows what they're doing. You've got to find somebody who knows how to create a discipline with these two things, because I can tell you from experience that if you just randomly grab some tantric practice and randomly grab some life force energy practice and throw them together, there's a very good chance that you are going to get a sine wave pattern of energies that don't merge, and then you start to come apart at the seams. You can get very sick. I know, because I've done it. This is why I've created this path. This path that I'm teaching you now is 20 years of experimentation in both of these disciplines. And so when I put together a ritual and a Qigong practice and a mantra, I know that those will vibrate on a level where they will syncretize and actually become greater. The sum of the parts become, the whole becomes greater than the sum of the parts. And you can do each one of them by themselves. When you bring them together, it's very powerful. So, here's what I would suggest doing. What I would suggest doing, let me just make a real easy one for you. The first level would be to go onto my channel and do the whole breath meditation. The whole breath meditation is a very simple way, a very, very safe way to open up all of the meridians. By the way, let me talk about yoga for a second. Yoga means union. And what you see when you drive down the street and you see yoga, that is like a 1% surface representation of what yoga is. Traditionally in India, when you go to an Indian yogi and you want to talk to you want to become a yoga master, and you say to the yogi, I want to be your student, I want to learn yoga, they go, oh, okay. Now, they don't know what you mean. Traditionally, when you said that, you were saying, I want to train with you for decades to learn this path of union. The way you start that path is you open up the meridians in the body so that your body will be prepared to handle the Kundalini when you start to do the mantra and the ritual and the other meditations. So when you see people doing all these stretches and the Hatha yoga is the first level of yoga. It's only meant to be done for a short period of time so that you could get the body cleansed and open to then go and do the deeper meditations. And it's people spend their entire life doing hatha yoga, and they get so into it. And there's all these different yogas. There's the hatha yoga, and there's the Bikram yoga and the Iyengar yoga, and they get all huffy and puffy. No, you have to do it like this, and that's the basics. It's just there to open the meridian so you can do the rest of it. So a real teacher, what he's going to do, or she's going to do, is after they've taught you yoga for a while, they watch you for years to see what your character is like. And after maybe 10 years, they've decided that you have the character to handle the secret stuff. Then they start teaching you the mantras and the rituals and the meditations and all the rest of that. Same is true, by the way, with Kung Fu and Tai Chi and all that other stuff, but I won't get into that. Anyway, so I have rambled on and on. I think maybe I've educated you, hopefully, about some of these things, how they come together. I gave you one ritual, which was just to do the whole breath. So let me give you... Okay, before I give you one, I'm trying to find something safe that I can just give out to everybody on YouTube. That's why I'm stumbling. So before I do that, let me just say this. If you're really serious about this, then my suggestion would be to do one of two things. The first one is less expensive. I would go on to thunderwizard.com and I would sign up at the, I believe it's the 3rd or the 4th level, which is the $108 a month. That, when you do that, I will give you your own shamanic astrological chart, which will tell you which planets want to work with you. There are 3 planets that want to work with you. I will tell you, this is true for everybody generally speaking, there are 3 major planets that want to work with you. I will tell you which deities want to work with you, and I will give you a specific mantra that is tuned specifically for you. Now, the mantra that is for you won't work for me. It's for you. That means it's safe. That means it'll be very powerful and it'll be safe. If you go to some of these other places online, or even teachers, and they give you a high-level tantric mantra and they don't know what they're doing, they can actually be causing you tremendous damage. You'll blow out circuits. So that would be the first thing I would suggest. And then what will happen is you'll learn to do the Qigong, and then I will teach you how to create a ritual where you can do a energy Qigong practice and then connect it to a mantra and a ritual that will work for you, not only based according to your chart, but based upon your level. Okay, so that I need to work with you personally to be able to do that. And then once a month we get together and either by Skype or by phone, or if you live near me in person, and then we can craft for you a practice where, trust me, you can tap into power beyond your wildest dreams. Most important thing about that is you will be healthy, you will be happy, and you will be a force for healing for the planet. Planet needs powerful light workers. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to give that to people. So that's the first thing I would recommend. Go to thunderwizard.com and go learn, I forget, 3rd or 4th level of subscription. Second thing you can do, if you don't want to go through all that and you just want me to give to you what you need, then go to astrology.thunderwizard.com and get a Vedic astrological reading from me. And I will give you all those things that I just mentioned. I'll create a perfect little routine for you that you won't ever have to do anything else for the rest of your life. That's the kind of stuff that I give. It's just for you, and it's powerful enough that if you do it for the rest of your life, you won't need to do anything else. So, having said that, the whole breath is something for brand new beginners. If you don't know about any of this, or you don't know anything about me, or you're not ready to do any of that stuff, go do the whole breath. That will get you started on the path of opening up all the meridians and getting you connected to a one-word chant that will begin to slowly and effectively and safely stimulate the Kundalini. Now let me go one step a little bit higher. Let's say, okay, I've done that, but I'm not ready to go do this, or Then here's another one. I would recommend going and doing the Thor's Hammer Qigong practice, which is on my channel. When you're done with the Thor's Hammer Qigong practice, then sit down and light a candle and just simply chant Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. It's a very popular mantra. You can go online and find it. Om Namah Shivaya. You can go do that. Go do that. Put that together. Do some Qigong and then chant Om Namah Shivaya. And let's say chant for 10 minutes. Okay? Let's make it 11 minutes, because 11 is the number of infinity. So do 3, 6, 9 minutes of Qigong, and then do 11 minutes of chanting Om Namah Shivaya. Do those two together for a month, for 40 days. Try it for 40 days. But trust me, before you're halfway done with the first time, you're going to feel the power of this thing. Why is this important? We can sit around and talk about spirituality forever. It means nothing. Talk is cheap. We are beings of experience. We need to get out of our heads. In order to be able to have power and to affect our lives and be beneficial to others, we have to be beings of experience. And so you can experience the universe firsthand. You don't have to talk about it or read it in a book. I want to give that to you. Everything I do that I teach, I only teach what I would want. I get people coming to me all the time telling me how I should water all this down and I should put this into more easily acceptable, easily digestible ways. You would have thousands, you would be rich, you would never have to worry about money again. You would have all this money. I know that, but I don't want to do that. I only teach what I would want for myself. I only teach things that I like doing, that are fun for me, that I have tested out and that work. Now I have a very high level, the bar is really high. I want as much power as I can get into my body. I want as much Kundalini and Qi power as I can possibly handle. So I've got a high level. I've been doing it for a long time. So some of the stuff is maybe more powerful than some people can handle. I'm okay with that. I can pull it back a little bit. But I am not going to give you guys the cheap garbage. I could name some names. I'm not going to give you that crap. And I could keep you coming back every month with all the little crap and keep you addicted to the pablum. I don't want to do that. I want to give you what I would want. So, anyway, I'm done with that speech for now. Let's see if there are any questions. I might be coming towards the end of this one here. All right, so can I grow my Lifeforce energy through just your hand exercise? I already answered that question. Savannah Moormask, is it true that you get a drop of pineal gland oil once a month when the moon is in your sign and that relates to your Kundalini awakening? I haven't heard that, but so what? Even if that's true, so what? It doesn't sound like a lot. Is that, if you're asking that, have you experienced that? Listen, I'm not interested in something I can't experience. I wanna crank open that pineal gland, and again, this is a good time to bring it up. This is why I don't do plant teachers. Plant teachers are externally forcing the pineal gland to squish out, and it's very toxic, and it's very, it's good once or twice to crank things open and have an experience, but after that, it's not helpful. But I want as much of that pineal gland TM, whatever it is, DMT as I can possibly get my little hands on. That's why I do this stuff. So I don't know if it's true or not, to be honest with you. But even if it is, so what? Who cares? Let's go way past that 1 drop a month. Let's get a bucket full every day. Okay, Savannah Moore says, if my tailbone is damaged from falling, can that stop my Kundalini awakening? No. Kundalini awakening is, yes, it's in your spine. That's, it's wrapped up at the base of your spine, but Kundalini is about emotional maturity. So if you really want to open your Kundalini, the best way to do it is to live in such a way where you live in an emotionally mature state. That's what all real spiritual teaching is about. That's, gurus and teachers and wizards are more than just teachers that sit around and talk about spirituality. They're also counselors. A true guru has to be a real psychologist, not somebody who just talks about it, but then can talk about it and then give you a practice to help you heal through it. So no, if you want your Kundalini awakened, all you have to do is do things that will bring you emotional maturity. So no, you're fine. Thank you. I just got a subliminal Zipar gave me a great compliment about my age. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Question, dive into Spirit 33. Say you can feel the energy between your palms very strongly and can move the energy and direct it. Direct. Is it Qigong? Yes. That is Qigong, if I understand your question. BC, does BC mean because? I don't know. Because BC is the Kundalini energy, the energy that runs up and down the spine. So listen, they both run up and down the spine. So there are practices like when you do the Hool breath, you are using life force energy and actually celestial energy and earthly energy, and you are sending it up and down what's called the central channel. So the central channel and the Kundalini channel are very close to each other. Don't try and figure it out. You don't even need to worry about it. So don't try and figure out all that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter. The only thing you need to know is that when you do Kundalini energy, you don't necessarily feel it going up and down the spine. If you do feel it very strongly, that is not a sign of Kundalini awakening. That is a sign of toxins in the nervous system. Nothing wrong with it. If it means you're detoxing, that's fine. But don't take it to mean anything. So the point of that is you don't need to meditate to try and feel your spinal column. Don't worry about it. Just, if you want to awaken the Kundalini strongly, then get a mantra ritual from me if you haven't already done so. That will do it. It doesn't matter what you feel or you don't feel. Your Kundalini will awaken when you start to emotionally mature. When you start to go through those lessons about, realizing, oh gosh, I used to think this way and I used to do that and I've grown past that, I'm more mature. That when you're mature, your Kundalini has awakened. Okay, I beat that horse to death, man. So there is a central channel that is used for Qi as well. And again, you don't have to worry about it. I've done all that stuff where you try and isolate the central channel and you bring this down this front here and you bring it. It's a waste of time. Just do the practices as I teach them and all that stuff will happen naturally. That's my belief and my experience. That's why I teach it. I don't like to waste time. So I hope I answered your question. Okay, questions. Christian Soret says, while practicing Qigong or Kundalini activation meditation, two different things, is feeling the meridians ending tip with stinging and sometimes lightning in them something that can happen? Yes. What is it? Nothing you need to worry about. It's either the nerves, like I said, are detoxing. It's just electrical current going through your nerves. Nothing to worry about. If it's a problem for you, then just simply pull back on the practice and or clean up your diet. If it's not Kundalini, then it'll happen sometimes with Qigong. You can get pain in the joints or pain, and that is simply because the meridians are blocked. It's like when your garden hose is kinked you know, and you've turned the water on full blast and it's like the water's trying to get through. So again, you can just back off on it or just keep going, because eventually the hose will unkink and the energy will go through. So when the energy is flowing, you don't feel anything. You might feel a pleasant sensation, whether it's Kundalini or Qi, but if you're feeling all kinds of pinpricks, and it just means that either the meridians are opening, or that there's an imbalance and you need to back off or perhaps clean your energy. And again, that's why it's good to have a teacher. Teachers can help you with this stuff. Yeah, Trojan horse. That's what I was looking for. You send in a Trojan horse. Yeah, way back a long time ago. All right. Savannah Moore, what if you're adopted and don't know the exact time of birth? That becomes difficult. If you can get as close as you can get, I will try and work with you. So, you know, if you can, you know, just get as close as you can, and I'll do my best to help you if you want me to work with you. Chronic Fury says, is working with Frey dangerous? No. No way. Quite the opposite. Frey is such a friend to human beings. In fact, it says that when, you know, that Frey unties the knots. No way. Frey is the planet Venus. Venus is the most beneficial and healing planet for the physical essence of the person. Heck no, he's not dangerous. He's a good friend of yours. I don't know where you got that. I don't know where that came from. But whoever told you that, I disagree with them. Okay, after awakening, Savannah Moore says, I got a pain in my hip that I was able to release once through yoga. How else can I release that pain? Well, shamanically speaking, physical pain can be emotionally, can be derived from emotional issues. I myself had major physical pain. I had joint pain, back pain, neck pain, knee pain. I had headaches. I had all kinds of problems years ago, but it's because I was in a marriage that I was stuffing down all of my feelings, and I was miserable, and it started expressing itself in the body. So without knowing you, I wouldn't be able to know if it was just purely physical or if there was an emotional shamanic connection. But the bottom line when it comes to healing is this: get my book, get this book here. Where is it? Where is that book? Is it this one? I think it's this one. Get this book here. You might not be able to read it, but the title is The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. That book will tell you how to heal yourself, among other things. Because physical pain, generally speaking, again, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not saying don't go to a doctor. Please go to a doctor for any legitimate physical complaints. But you can also ensure healing by making sure that you are shamanically balanced. The easiest way to do that is to ask yourself, what is it that I'm not giving myself in life? What is it that I'm not doing? What do I wish I was doing? Do I hate my job? Do I hate my relationship? Do I wish that I was doing something else? You know, when I was 49 years old and I thought I was old, even though I was teaching all this Qigong and martial arts and all that, I was miserable, and I had major back pain and neck pain and joint pain and knee pain and all that, and I was told by my doctors I'd never be able to surf or lift weights again or hike or any of that stuff, and I was just going to have to live with it. And I got so miserable, I finally left my marriage, and I moved to Southern California with no money and no job. And if you know anything, it's expensive here. And I moved down here, and I started doing the things I wanted to do again, even though I physically couldn't do it. I couldn't, you know, I moved down here in the winter, and I went to one of the biggest breaks here, which is in Manhattan Beach, where in the wintertime, if you've ever been down here, the waves get really big. And I hadn't surfed in years. in over 10 years. And I got myself a surfboard and I started paddling out in that freezing water and I almost drowned. But damn it, I was going to die surfing because I wanted to do what I wanted. And I wasn't going to let anything, I wasn't going to let any physical pain stop me. And guess what happened? I was hiking in the mountains every day. I was surfing every day. I got myself back into shape. I didn't change my diet or anything. I just simply did what I wanted to do. All of my pain is gone. All of it. Now, I can't guarantee that's going to happen for you because, again, I don't know if you've got an actual physical issue or not. Lots of times when doctors say you have a physical issue, sometimes you really don't. You've got some other issues where the nerves have pinched off, all of the oxygen flow has been pinched off because you're trying to avoid your emotions, and the way that you do that is you give yourself a physical pain. It's real physical pain, but it's psychosomatic, meaning it comes from the emotions. Anyway, I talk about that in that book, so go get that book, and if that doesn't heal your pain, it will at the very least give you an opportunity to make your life better. So that's my answer to that question. Okay, let's see, what else do we got here? Definitely not physical. Well, then that's real simple. The other thing to do, I can tell you, go and look for a book. Go look for an author called Dr. I forget his name. Anyway, I guess I'm not supposed to give it out. Get my book if you want to connect with me. Get a session with me. If what you're saying is true and your pain is definitely not physical, then I can help you. I can help you heal yourself. So go to astrology.thunderwizard.com and get a session with me. I can help you. All right. Alrighty. All right. So that is all for those questions. So I don't know what else that I may have something more to say, maybe not. But before I go any further, listen. This channel is going to explode. It's on the verge. I can feel it. This channel is going to explode. And that means more and more stuff is going to be coming through me and through this channel. If you appreciate what I'm doing, because what I want to do is I want to make this my full-time focus, and it almost is. I'm almost there. I still do some other stuff on the side, but I'm almost there making a living with my books and with my clients and all that coming directly off of this work in this channel. The best way to support this, let's say you don't want to become an apprentice, but you want to support what I'm doing, go to thunderwizard.com and sign up at the $25 level. That means $25 a month. You're going to get private videos from me that only advanced shamanic students get, because I do teach a full course. And talk to anybody who's done it. I teach a very in-depth course of advanced shamanism about all this stuff we're talking about. And I get people saying, "Oh, I can't afford it." And I seriously, I can't understand how you cannot afford $25 a month. That's beyond me. I can understand not being able to afford 108 or 200 or 400. I can get that. That makes sense to me. That's a good chunk of change even for me. But $25 a month, seriously? Listen, if I had 250 people paying $25 a month, I would be at this every single day. I would be online every single day giving these things out. I would be able to help people more in depth. I wouldn't have to do all the kinds of stuff that I'm doing. So that's the best way to support this channel. Obviously the books and the DVDs and all that stuff, but I don't make a whole lot of money off of that. That's really just there for you guys. I want to get that information out there. What else did I want to tell you? Yeah, so two things. Again, go on to the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel, because, you know, again, if money is an issue for you, there are so many free videos on there. It's frustrating for me because, you know, I get people who don't put the effort into it. I'm not trying to attack anybody. It's okay. There's so much info out there. It's impossible for you to memorize all the stuff I have out there. So I'm not saying you shouldn't have questions when you talk to me. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that this comes from people who complain about not having this and not having that. go onto my channel and binge watch it. I can promise you there's information on there you're not going to find anywhere else, and it's 100% for free. It's just YouTube. So it's good for me. It gets up the view counts and all that stuff. It's good for my channel, and it's good for me. So go ahead and go do that. But when it comes to working with me, there are people that are still confused about what the Patreon site is, the thunderwizard.com site is. So let me explain it to you again. It is a site where you can subscribe, and I think the lowest is $5 a month. That really does nothing. It's just a token, $5 a month, that makes you feel better because you know you're contributing to me doing this channel. At 25 bucks a month, you get all of the private videos, and I add, generally speaking, I add one new video a week where I go into depth for an hour about some concept, the runes, ritual, the gods, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to get into all of that, even more so. But there's tons of info, and if you start from the very beginning, you can get a complete advanced course in shamanism starting from the very beginning for just 25 bucks a month. Then if you go up to the next level, which I believe is $108 a month, then you get to work with me for 1 hour a month. And I will give you a Vedic astrological shamanic chart. I will also look at your, I will also give you rune readings. I will work with you personally on whatever you want to work on. Whatever your questions are, whatever you want, I will help you with that. You can go all the way up to 4 times a week if you want. So that is how that works. And so people get so put off by that because they think, oh, I don't want to have to pay. But listen, 25 bucks a month is nothing. And the videos are piling up. I don't know how many videos, because I'm putting a new one on every week. So the videos are piling up. So with that combined with this channel, there's so much information I'm giving out there. So again, just put the time into it. It'll be well worth it. Go on to both of those channels and put some time into watching those channels. And if you get overwhelmed, that's okay. You can maybe book a session with me. I'll help you narrow down something specifically just for you. So that's it. Every now and then I do have to, make a big push so that people understand what it is that I'm offering and what's available to you. So having said that, I'm going to do a little bit of ads, see if there's any last minute questions, and then I might have some last minute pithy thing to say. So I'll be back here in a minute or so. Okay, so I didn't see any questions, which is fine. We've been on for over 2 hours now. People saying nice things. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, good. So, last minute things. What do I want to say here? All right, so let me get practical again. So again, just to recap, if you're brand new to all of this, go onto the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel. That's the free YouTube channel. And go and start with the Huul breath. H-U-U-L breath. You can type that in, H-U-U-L breath. Start with that. And that will do a few different things. Like I said, it will definitely connect you to life force energy without a doubt. It will ground you. It will open up your central channel. It will open up the major meridians in your body. And it will connect you to the Mother Goddess. And on top of that, it will be an initiation into this path. So a true teaching path is a path of initiation. Now, normally you have to jump through a bunch of hoops, and you have to do this, and I pledge to the teacher, and the blah, blah, blah. You have to do all that kind of stuff. You don't have to do that with me. That's not my job. I have no interest in creating a cult. But you will be working with the Ascended Masters who have taught me, and who continue to teach me, and who are working through me. That is your initiation. You will be initiated into this path by the Earth Mother Goddess herself, Mother Hola, the ancient goddess of Earth, who, from what I understand, what she tells me, she's been there for a long time. She was the first one there. First one there, Mother Hola, my beautiful mother. I'm going to get emotional. I love her so much. She will initiate you into this path very lovingly, and she will give you everything that you need. By the way, that Huul breath is one of those things that you don't ever have to do anything else. If you just did that for the rest of your life, you would achieve everything. Everything that anybody can tell you, enlightenment, spirituality, health, she will give it all to you. Everything else I do is fun, and but really you don't need to go past that if you don't want. So don't say I never gave anything to you. All right, so that's the first thing I would say. If you want to go past that, besides working with me directly, of course, then the next thing I would recommend is, let's see, you know what would be a good one, is to go onto Amazon and look for Thunder Qigong. Thunder Qigong is very good. It will give you a standing posture, which will open up the meridians. It will do all kinds of good things. It will open up all the meridians. And then I teach you a mantra for Thunar, which you can use. And so that in and of itself is the combination of Qigong and mantra, where you will be opening up both the Kundalini and the life force energy. You will be doing it directly with the god of thunder. So it's Kundalini and life force energy with sort of leaning towards life force energy, which in my experience is a little safer. If you want to, let's make that option number 2. Option number 3, like I said before, I'll repeat myself. If you want to move more towards the Kundalini path, would be a little safer. And again, this is without working with me. I'm trying to give you just a safe thing that everybody can do. If you want one tailored to yourself, you got to call me. Then go onto the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel and look for Thor's belt or Thor's hammer. I forget what I call it. Do that Qigong. Then directly after that, sit and do Om Namah Shivaya for 11 minutes. Make sure that you ground yourself afterwards, which means that you take your hands and you place them over your navel and you just breathe long and deep over your navel until you feel grounded and balanced and comfortable. Okay? So, if you really want the advanced stuff, you're going to have to contact me to get that. I'm happy to give it to those who look for it. So that's it for now, my friends. A lot of information here today. I hope I answered some questions, or maybe created more answers than answered. But I had a lot of fun, and so I thought this was a fun thing to talk about, so I did. Anyway, that's it for now, my friends. Let me see any last-minute questions. Obviously, nope, no questions. Let's see, wait. Should we do it outside, or is my third-story apartment? You can do it inside or outside. It doesn't matter. Either one is fine. Yep. Okay, so that's it for now, my friends. Thank you so much for the opportunity of being here. Thank you, my brothers, my sisters, my mothers, my daughters, my friends, future gods and goddesses, future elves to be. Thank you so much for the opportunity of being a channel and being a part of this. You don't know how much you help me just by being here and by being a part of this. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you all very soon, I'm sure.